some of the rocks and minerals from the ocean. Those ones are from the Octopus Odyssey that some of the researchers participate last year. And here we have some of the microfossils. We have radiolarians and foraminifera. They are part of the pelagical rain. And here in this part, we have some of the fossils of the collection from the Geological School of UCR. As you can see, these ones are part of some seaweed. They are like whale fossils, and those ones are some basalts. And here we have this slide that you can see in the microscope.
Hello, we are students from the University of Costa Rica. We come from the Museum of Zoology. We are here in the Offshore Symposium, and we have an exhibit of deep sea organisms. Here we have a new species of chimera that was just discovered here. We also have the tripod fish and the yeti crab.
We also have some octocorals.
Es que tengo que ver dónde
Da mi teléfono.
es que se agarra el micrófono para decir todo esto. Ahí está, ahí está. No, tiene que correrlo, tiene que correrlo. Ajá, ajá. Estamos a llegarle. ¡Ay! No.
Hello, we are students from the University of Costa Rica. We come from the Museum of Zoology. We are here in the Offshore Symposium, and we have an exhibit of deep sea organisms. Here we have a new species of chimera that was just discovered here. We also have the tripod fish and the yeti crab.
We also have some octocorals. Some of these create reefs in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have sea sponges. This is a sponge. We also have some starfish that were collected in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have some sea cucumbers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, this is an interactive sandbox that represents different things in geological features and show us how the slope change when I change the direction of the sand. So we can see heights here, and water over here. In the in the in the display, we can see the parts of with waters and the parts that represent mountains or islands.
Hi, today we have some of the rocks and minerals from the ocean. Those ones are from the Octopus Odyssey that some of the researchers participate last year. And here we have some of the microfossils. We have radiolarians and foraminifera. They are part of the pelagical rain. And here in this part, we have some of the fossils of the collection from the geological school of UCR. As you can see, these ones are part of some seafood. They are like whale fossils, and those ones are some basalts. And here we have these slides that you can see in the microscope.
Hello, we are students from the University of Costa Rica. We come from the Museum of Zoology. We are here in the Offshore Symposium, and we have an exhibit of deep sea organisms. Here we have a new species of chimera that was just discovered here. We also have the tripod fish and the yeti crab.
We also have some octocorals. Some of these create reefs in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have sea sponges. This is a sponge. We also have some starfish that were collected in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have some sea cucumbers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is an interactive sandbox that represent different things in geological features and show us how the slope change when I change the direction of the sand. So we can see heights here, and water over here. In the in the in the display, we can see the parts with waters and the parts that represent mountains or islands.
Hi, today we have some of the rocks and minerals from the ocean. Those ones are from the Octopus Odyssey that some of the researchers participate last year. And here we have some of the microfossils. We have radiolarians and foraminifera. They are part of the pelagical rain. And here in this part, we have some of the fossils of the collection from the Geological School of UCR. As you can see, these ones are part of some seafood. They are like whale fossils, and those ones are some basalts. And here we have these slides that you can see in the microscope. Those are samples of seaweeds. They came from the Pampa submarina in the seafloor, and they are related with Miocene sediments.
And this is a sample from radiolarian calcareous and unsiliceous ooze. That we can see here are some radiolarians that are from more or less Miocene, middle Miocene to, middle Miocene in general, and it's around 15 million years ago that all these organisms that you can see here were living. Today we don't have any more radiolarians at that age. So this species we used to calibrate ages in the deep ocean.
These are Miocene foraminifera from the Pampa submarina from the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. This is unprocessed sediment full of forams.
Hello, we are students from the University of Costa Rica. We come from the Museum of Zoology. We are here in the Offshore Symposium, and we have an exhibit of deep sea organisms. Here we have a new species of chimera that was just discovered here. We also have the tripod fish and the yeti crab.
We also have some octocorals. Some of these create reefs in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have sea sponges. This is a sponge. We also have some starfish that were collected in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have some sea cucumbers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning, Sergio. So we made it, day 3. Thank you for being here. The last day of the Offshore Science Costa Rica Symposium. So today we have, we've been, learning about all the different, like the general setting, por favor. Like the general geological setting, all the different expeditions that we've made and different topics around the offshore ecosystems. And today we will finalize that part with a oceanographic session. And we have 2 keynote speakers that will speak about physical and chemical oceanography. After that, we will have some lightning talks that will be presented, like 3-minute maximum presentations for the people that will present a poster also later in the afternoon. And we will have a couple of rounds of lightning talks. And then we will have a different session that I called collaboration. And we will have the participation of a person from Schmidt Ocean Institute and also different speakers that are here in person. And when we finish this collaboration session, we will try to do a different activity in the afternoon, like basically networking, and we will split groups and make some discussions with some questions to open the discussion. So I will explain that later. And after that, we'll come here again and make a summary and some conclusions about the symposium, and then we will move to the CIMAR lobby. So yeah, thank you. I will, Yvonne will help me moderate the first session. Thank you.
Thanks, Bea. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our last day. Our first speaker for today is going to be Sergio Cambronero. We all know him, we all love him. Sergio is a doctoral researcher at, I'm going to butcher the name, but it's the Laboratory of Oceanography, Le Villefranche of Sorbonne University, CNRS, focusing on deep and pelagic environments using autonomous robotic platforms. Researcher at Department of Physics at Universidad Nacional Costa Rica, co-founder of Colectivo Internacional Pelagos Océanos. His professional interests are on physical oceanography, deep sea ecology, resource management, data science, ecological connectivity, marine technology, science diplomacy, underwater videographer, and project manager. He is co-lead of the Biodiversity Conservation Task Force of the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative, DOSI. Sergio, come on.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for being here so early, and thanks for the invitation to give this presentation. So, I did this presentation not necessarily to show specific topics, but more like a general overview of what we know so far and some small steps that we have advanced in our understanding of the Pacific Exclusive Economic Zone. So, okay. Here, there. Where is it? Okay. Oh. Okay. So, well, first, as an introduction, well, Iwan already said it, but just to give you an overview of my background, I'm a marine biologist from Universidad Nacional, also co-founder of an NGO, so I've been involved in different types of projects. Also, I've been fortunate enough to collaborate with some organizations working on deep sea topics. More recently, moved over to science to policy approach, and then I'm just starting a PhD at Sorbonne University in France. So when we talk about the ocean, and this is I would say the general concept of this presentation. When we talk about the ocean, we know that we're talking about a dynamic environment that is three-dimensional, that is a fluid. Sometimes when we think about the ocean, we either think about the surface or the seafloor, as many of you are specialized. But today I'm going to focus on what happens in between and how the connections that happen here also affect either the surface or the seafloor. So pretty much focusing on the water column concept. Sometimes it's very interesting to see and to notice that when people talk about the deep sea, they talk just about the seafloor and not necessarily about the circulation or the water masses that feed and that relate to the deep sea. So to have two concepts, first I'm going to focus on hydrography and hydrodynamics. So this means, as you can see here, basically hydrography, both are like fields of research within physical oceanography. So hydrography is pretty much how the different parameters are distributed on a specific space and time, so as you can see here. And then on the other hand, we have hydrodynamics that is strongly linked to what happens with what we can find in hydrography. But in this case, hydrodynamics is more related to the physical forcing and how the actual water masses are moved across different depths and layers. So just to start some basic concepts. First, when we talk about the water column, a very important concept that we have to take into consideration is that we have to talk about time and scale. So as you can see here in this figure, in the y-axis you have the time, and on the x-axis you have the space. And as you can see in the ocean and in the atmosphere, in the planet in general, we have a lot of different processes that can be plotted here, and because of this, we are able to understand it with certain tools and with some other nuts, depending on the type of tool that we have. So for example, here, the ones that are in like light blue are the ones that we are able to understand thanks to remote sensing, pretty much satellites. But as you can see, there are a lot of other ones that are not necessarily well addressed in detail with satellite imagery, and this is why we need more technologies to complement the satellite data. So thanks to satellite data, and is that we are able to understand this time and space scale. So we can say, all right, well, we know that this current is going from Ecuador to San Diego, and it happens over a 6-month period or 1-year period. So it's important to also understand the time, and that in order to understand long time scale processes, we need long time series data. Another concept that is important is geostrophy and eddies. So this is just for you to have a clear picture, and let's say to understand what I'm going to present later. So when we talk about major currents, we talk about geostrophic currents, and these are currents that are pretty much due to the geostrophic balance between the different pressure gradients that are, in this case, associated with the sea surface height. So there are different processes in the ocean that make that the sea level changes, and based on this is that when we have a higher point, a lower point, we know already, because of the conservation of masses, that there is a current that usually flows. Right. All right. Okay. So for example, thanks to this type of concept, we know that there are major ocean currents, but let's say that this is a simplified version of our understanding of the ocean. It's not necessarily in detail. So it's important to understand that also when we see some images, they are simplified, but not necessarily reflect or represent what happens in such a small spaces relatively as the Costa Rican EEZ. So for example, you can see here, we just know, like there is like this divergence, like this bifurcation, but of course there's more happening here that we need to take a look with different tools. Another concept is the eddies. So just as a brief overview, we know that we have cyclonic eddies and anticyclonic eddies, and they depend pretty much on the direction of the rotation. So for example, the cyclonic rotations or eddies are counterclockwise, and the anticyclonic rotation or eddies have a clockwise rotation or movement. And this is how we can see it in the surface, but then they also have an impact on what happens in the deeper layers. So the cyclonic eddies, such as the thermal dome that we have been talking a lot about in this symposium, it's a feature that is a cyclonic circulation. So that means that it's divergent, so it pushes the waters away. So what we can see, let's say we have like a slice of the water column, is that we will have a depression at the sea level, at the sea level, and then this will provoke that we will have upwelling. And then on the other hand, what happens with anticyclonic eddies is that we have an accumulation of water that provokes that the center of the eddy is higher in height, and then this provokes different processes in the water column, but specifically is related also to downwelling. So it depresses the isopycnals and the isolines. And thanks to this type of concepts and our understanding of this, we have been able to understand and to move away from this simplified visions of just lines, and to understand that currents are not necessarily linear, and they are not alone. What I want to say with this is that they interact with many different processes, and this is why it's important to understand the concepts of geostrophic currents that are more in the long term, longer, higher time and scale spaces, but then they can be influenced and determined also by the mesoscale processes that, for example, are associated with eddies and other processes that happen in shorter time scales. Also, another important concept is to talk about water masses and how in oceanography we understand what happens in the water column. So pretty much what we use is TS diagrams. So this type of plots are very common. In the x-axis you have the salinity, in the y-axis you have the temperature, and then let's say you take a point in every part of the ocean, and if you put it here, let's say that you will be able to understand not only in which ocean basin, but also which water mass is associated to that specific point. So for example, and to start getting in detail about the region, this paper that I will talk about later is one of the most, let's say, important articles that and reviews that have been released in the last 20 years by Fiedler and Talley in 2006. And thanks to this, they did a review, they did some simulations with model, with in situ data, and they were able to get an updated and more comprehensive view of the different water masses that are in the area. So of course, when we want to understand what happens in the Costa Rican exclusive economic zone, it's important to understand what happens in the region, because at the end, if we're talking about offshore systems, they are strongly connected to what happens in general in the sub-basin. So in here, as you can see, the different colors are associated with these water masses. So for example, in orange, you can see the subtropical north water masses. In red, the tropical ones. In blue, the equatorials. And in green, the subtropical ones, but of the south. And then if you plot it against the TS diagram, you can see that there are subtle differences in the shapes of these water masses. And of course, each one of these letters denote a specific water mass. And part of what we want to understand as oceanographers is to see which water masses are in which specific time and space. So to start with the overview of the regional circulation, as I was saying, and as the lady from yesterday said very well, there have been like two major important research moments in the last 100 years about our understanding in the regional circulation in the oceanography. The first one around the 60s, and then early 2000s were the burst of research and oceanographers trying to get more detail on what's happening here. So initially we had this by Wirtke in 1964, and as you can see, these were very rough representation, of course, also limited by the data availability then. And then almost 40 years later, we have more detailed understanding of what's happening here. So for example, you see here that the thermal dome was not addressed here necessarily, and in here it was identified. So important here is that you see that what happens in Costa Rica is associated with this current, that is the north equatorial contour current. And then it also interacts with what happens at this front, because these geostrophic currents are usually associated with what we call fronts. And then out of these fronts, there are other mesoscale processes that interact also with the atmosphere. Moving over, we have now a better understanding. So this is another figure by Fiedler and Talley. And we know that Costa Rica is also located, thanks to this research, in what we call the Eastern Pacific Warm Pool, as you can see here. And you might wonder why, and this is because of the circulation in general. The waters here are colder than in the surrounding areas. And but definitely we know that in Costa Rica it's not necessarily like that, because we have, for example, features such as the thermal dome that upwells cold water. Then in here you can see a more recent overview, and you can see here that is identified what we call the Costa Rica coastal current, which is something that's still being debated in the literature and by scientists, because sometimes it's very easy to identify, and some other times it's not. We also know that the regional and, let's say in hydrographic terms, we can divide and classify what happens in the region using, let's say, biogeochemical processes. So what I want to show here is that there is already this classification in the area. And of course, in Costa Rica, you see that there is a biogeochemical province for the coast of Central America, and there is another one for this specific region. And of course, this is based not necessarily on currents or hydrodynamics, but more on hydrography and how the parameters, the biogeochemical parameters, distribute. And then also very recently in 2020, we had this paper by Evans, and they take a deeper look at how the water masses circulate in the area. So what I want to show here is, as well as you can see, this circulation that was showed in the other figures, But in this case, in yellow, you can see specific and very special places that are called the oxygen minimum zones. And these are, let's say, provoked somehow, some way by the circulation of the water masses and the level of ventilation that there is in the water column. And another thing that I want to show here is that even though this water you see is very far away, there are some upwelling of this specific water mass here sometimes. And as you can see, and I will show later, it has to do with the mesoscale and the anticyclonic eddies. So I'm going to skip this. All right, so in the region, we have two major, let's say, states of balance. So when the wind blows in the dry season, usually we have that there is a strong upwelling, and the intertropical convergence zone is more to the south. When northerly winds stop, this intertropical convergence zone moves northern, and then the circulation changes. So as you can see here, the wind, even though we might think that the wind is local, we can see that there is a large influence of what happens with wind vectors and how this influences the offshore circulation. So you see here that the wind plume of the Papagayo upwelling, it's extending almost like 300 kilometers in terms of space. And we talked about this before, so I'm not going to, let's say, put too much detail in this, but taking a zoom into our EEZ, we know that besides and additionally to the geostrophic currents, we have two important features here, the thermal dome and also the anticyclonic eddies that form due to this strong winds in Papagayo. And as Don Jorge showed yesterday for the thermal dome, it is important to know also that this doming is not isolated, and it happens actually because it's the last point of this thermocline ridge of the north equatorial countercurrent. So what I want to show here is that this is actually shows some degree of connectivity between the Costa Rica exclusive economic zone and the rest of the Central Pacific. So let's say if we want to see it in a very simplified way, we can say that we know that the main current, geostrophic current that affects Costa Rica is the north equatorial countercurrent. But we've seen that when this current hits the Cocos Ridge, some of it deflects north, and that's what we call the Costa Rica northern coastal current. And then some of it, it flows here, and this is a big unknown because, as you know already, the bathymetry here changes, and what we see here is that the circulation is not that clear and that is straightforward, and that is because of the changes in the bathymetry and also the stability of the water column. So based on the current knowledge that we have, we can say that in Costa Rica, we can identify, let's say, like 3 main regions in terms of circulation. So the first one is this, that is the arm of the north equatorial northern current, and that will give birth to the Costa Rica coastal current. The other area that is on top of Cocos Ridge behaves differently, and there is not that much information about what happens here, so this is a big unknown. And even though what I'm focusing here is in the Pacific, I just wanted to say that also in the Caribbean we have important offshore features that are important to understand. And this is just to show how the oxygen minimum zone works. So when we have strong winds, we have a strong upwelling, and this provokes a strong oxygen minimum zone. And when the winds are weaker, the oxygen minimum zone weakens. This is an overview of a more realistic view of how the actual circulation works. So you see, in real life, currents are not necessarily linear, but are more like meanders and a lot of conjunction and a sum of processes. And as you can see here specifically in our EEZ, we can see clearly that there is a difference for this area that I was showing for the Cocos Ridge, and this is what we have been trying to understand with different expeditions that have been happening. So I'm going to run a little bit because I'm being that way. Okay, and this is some very brief data on recent expeditions. Another important thing is that the circulation, we know that changes and is affected by the ENSO phases, by the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So this, just for you to take into consideration, the first two results of expeditions that I'm going to show happen in ENSO, the first one in ENSO negative, the second one in ENSO neutral, and the third one in ENSO positive. Okay, so for the first one, we saw that, and this is one of the advancements that was not there before, is that there is a latitudinal variation of the oxygen minimum zone across the eastern tropical Pacific. And as you can see here, we also identify how deep the mesoscale can affect the upper layer of the oxygen minimum zone. And we got a paper out of this showing that the fish larvae restrict to the hypoxic and the suboxic levels of the oxygen minimum zone. We also were able to identify and to validate the models that the altimetry models, the ones that we were able to get with the satellite, they're important to be validated in situ. So with these expeditions, we have been able to validate what we see with the satellite, and this is important also to give a feedback to the models and be able to calibrate them better. But as you can see here, we were able to see that during this expedition that was in February, the main current was from south to north. Yeah, because of time, I'm not going to be able to discuss this more in detail, but just that much of the things that we have been doing is to identify and to understand better what is the interaction between the OMC, the oxygen minimum zone, and the thermal dome. So for example, in here, in this expedition, we saw that the oxygen minimum depth of the suboxic, which is below 10 micromolars per kilogram, is almost 500 meters thick, which is pretty much all this that you see in yellow. And then the other thing that we started to understand with these recent expeditions is that there is a water mass that is very important, that is what we call the 13-degree water mass, which is located here in this part of the TS diagram. And it's a water mass that moves across this oxygen minimum zone and ventilates the oxygen minimum zone. So if we want to understand what happens with this, we need to understand also what happens with this water mass. And I'm going to skip this. Also in this expedition, we began the deployment of different Argo floats, which we talked yesterday, and we will be able to do it in the long term, understand how the water masses flow in this area. Then the other one, just to run a little bit, showing the same view, we have that in this case, for this expedition that was in February of 2023, the 13-degree water mass was less oxygenated, and in this case, the thickness of the oxygen minimum zone increased, and the core was a little bit more close to the coast. And this is pretty much what we can see here with the altimetry. This is the level of the ocean. So pretty much what we can see here is the upwelling of Papagayo and how it connects with the thermal dome. So this is what we see in the other data. So pretty much when the dome is more active, we have that the OMC gets more like thicker. And when it's not there, it becomes less thick or more narrow. Okay. So yes, so just to wrap up, just to show a little bit of what we found in the Octopus Odyssey expeditions, and I'm going to be brief with this, is this, that we saw in the first expedition in June that there is an influence of equatorial waters, as you can see here in blue, this ones. And we didn't see this in the other one, which is here. So as you can see here, this is the TS diagram from December expedition, and we see that there is no equatorial water influence. So part of the conclusions that we have been able to see and to understand is that that equatorial intrusion of water was because of what we call tropical instability waves. And this is something that we didn't know before that affected the area. And there has been more recent research from 2023 that the tropical instability waves are becoming more and more frequent. So this is going to have an impact of what happens in our EEZ, because these tropical instability waves, what they are is they push water into our EEZ. So let's say when we have tropical instability waves pulses, we will have more equatorial waters, and when we don't have them, we will have a more dominant circulation by the north equatorial countercurrent. And yes, well, we have been deploying some floats. I'm not going to put too much detail in this. We've been doing also some satellite imagery analysis. And at the end, what we want to understand now is the biological carbon pump. And yes, I'm sorry I have to go. But yeah, I would like to finish saying that there is also recent research in which we have identified how the coastal areas relate to the offshore. So for example, in Santa Elena, we saw that when the upwelling decreases, because these are wind pulses, this water that was pushed away comes back into the Gulf of Santa Elena, and this is what provokes that this area is so productive. As you can see here, like these wind pulses are not linear, constant. So that's it. Thank you very much. And any questions?
Thanks, Sergio. I see that the equatorial currents, we call equatorial, but they are north of the equator. Do you think, or is it known that they move south depending on the rotation, on the inclination of the rotation axis of the Earth, like in windows of tens of thousand years, that you may have these currents moving south because of the tilting, or what controls that?
That is a very good question. I think it's more like for a geophysicist. But what people have been able to see is that the main variation of the variability associated with the equatorial waters is more related to the ENSO, to the El Nino. So I don't think there is research on that specific topic that you mentioned, but there is definitely an association with ENSO, so with this low frequency variation, and also with the Pacific decadal oscillation, the PDO. And I guess that part of what we want to understand now, and this is something that is an advancement in Costa Rica, is that we need to understand this middle transition zone between Cocos Ridge and the Pampa Submarina area, because in this transition zone is where we will have the most unstable water column because of the tropical instability waves, because of the eddies, and of course this, let's say, we will have an impact on the productivity here. But yeah, I'm sorry that I cannot answer your question specifically, but I'm sure that there's probably some literature. I haven't seen it, but I will look for it, and then if not, I'll free it.
Thanks, Sergio. Now for our next talk, we have Eddie Gomez. Eddie is a proud Costa Rican from Guanacaste. Beautiful place. Holds a bachelor's and a licentiate degree in chemistry at the University of Costa Rica and a master's degree in oceanography from the University of Cádiz, Spain, and a PhD in marine sciences from the University of Cádiz. He is a professor at the School of Chemistry and a researcher at CIMAR here at the university. His research focuses on nutrient dynamics and primary production of coastal environments, as well as sediment water column coupling in these areas. He also works on topics related to coastal pollution. So, Eddie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much to be here. Thank you, Sergio, because I don't have to talk a lot in English. Sorry, I made my speech in Spanish, and I will try to make it in English. Okay, I will talk about some information that we have as a kind of review, that information that we have the chemical oceanography in the seas surrounding Costa Rica. We have 3 different zones. For example, this is the shallow zone. In the coastal zone is mainly really influenced by the coastal phenomenon, like pollutants, for example, nutrients, strong nutrient currents, for example, from some specific rivers. Then we have the Caribbean, that also, as you know, is the one of the less studied areas in our country. And then we have all this part of our territorial marine zone. And I will talk about the coastal and pelagic and also the deep areas. Okay, as Sergio told, thank you, Sergio. We are in front of the oxygen minimum zone, but it's just a minimum zone, not a real zero, like in the Mexican or Peruvian zone, but it's minimum zone is strong enough to have some specific kind of process that I will talk about. Okay, Sergio talked about this phenomena, how this occur, for example, how this happen, and it really is influenced by the plankton dynamic in the water column, of course, and how when the organic matter falls down in the water column, the oxygen is depleted, and the oxygen is not replaced by the currents, for example. So that's really important when we talk about the nutrients dynamics in the water column. And I will talk mainly about nitrogen, because it's the most interested element in this case, because phosphorus is just have one species in the water. It's not really important. Sorry for the people who work with phosphorus, but it's not really changed a lot. The oxide state don't change a lot, and then don't have a really actually don't have gases in the cycle of the phosphorus. But in the nitrogen, we have different oxidation states that are represented here. We have the more reduction form and the most oxidation form, that is in nitrate and ammonium, in the elemental form, and also we have the nitrate. So what I wanted to show here is the different kind of processes that we have in the water column. And when we have an anoxic zone, like in the minimum zone that we have in Costa Rica, in front of the Pacific Costa Rica, we have mainly this kind of process, that anamox, that is really important there, because in those areas we are losing nitrogen, and this is really important to the primary production and also to another processes. And we also have the denitrification, and the NRA also is an important process in this kind of environments. And this is more specific kind of image that may show how this process occurs. For example, we have the methanogenic, because in these areas, in the oxygen minimum zone, when we are depleted of oxygen, the methane is produced by the fermentation, and also by this is the way that the organic matter produced. So this is an important thing, because in the minimum zone are really rich of methane, but that methane doesn't reach the atmosphere, because there is a really important community of organisms that convert this methane to CO2, and then that is reach the atmosphere. Also, we have process like sulfate reduction. This is really important also. And in this last year is being focused most of the research in this process, because apparently this is another way to lose nitrogen, not also with the oxidation, coupled with the methane oxidation. Also, this process apparently is coupled with the methane oxidation. So, because the vertical mixing is not efficient in this area, we have that process, the nitrification to lose nitrogen, and we also have this process, and apparently is coupled with this other process, with the nitrogen lost to the atmosphere. Okay. Those data become from some field trip when maybe one of you have been involved. This is data from the Mexican and Peruvian zones, but not from Costa Rica. And what I show you here is we have the minimum zone in front of Costa Rica here. That's really depleted of oxygen below 2,000 meters. I'm not really sure. And then we have the oxygen depleted here, but we have depleted also in ammonium, and we have an increase in NO2 and nitrogen oxygen. This is really important because probably this is the most important, one of the most important greenhouses gases, but it's not reaching the atmosphere because there is a population of organisms who consume that gas in this area of the optimal minimal zone. Okay, this other data comes from the same field trip, and we have this in this principal depths. We have the minimum zone here, and we also have the ammonium increasing in this area, and the N2O in this part of the water column. This is a collaboration with some people from Southern Denmark University. They have some samples from also in the oxygen minimum zone to show how the oxygen is depleted in this area. But what is important of this is because there is an increase of nitrate in this area that is support the methane oxidation. And these other data become from another collaboration with people from the South Denmark University. If you can see, the depth is different because it's not from the oxygen minimal zone. They come from the Golfo Dulce. This is a coastal area here in Costa Rica. The Golfo Dulce is exactly the same chemically talking about. It's exactly the same with the oxygen minimal zone. The processes that you can see in the oxygen minimal zone, you also can find it in this area. So you can find the same kind of profiles, but obviously shallower. And you also can find a similar profile of nitrate. You can see, but this is in the shallow area, of course. It's the same with nitrate. You can see the accumulation gets into the bottom. And as the oxygen minimal zone, you also can see the accumulation of methane near the bottom. So this is the same. Is to another field trip. We can see the oxygen deplete below to 100 meter depth, and the accumulation of nitrate and the accumulation of nitrated, and also the methane accumulation in the deepest zone. Okay, but not also, but the important thing is the oxygen minimal zone and that kind of processes also in Golfo Dulce. And the oxygen minimal zone is that all this methane is not reaching the surface because there is a community of organisms that consumes this gas, this greenhouse gas, and the equation that are created for this kind of process are this. in which one the nitrate is involved. But probably the most important is this, because as you know, the nitrate is a highly oxidation way of the nitrogen, and there is no compatible with the oxygen minimal zone. So probably the nitrate is the most important that controls the methane oxidation in this environment. This, for example, is the oxygen, the methane consumption rates. As you can see, the methane consumption rate increase with the depth. Also, according to the methane production in the water column, this is the constant of the consumption of methane. This is for different methane oxidation in micromole to liters per day. This is according to the methane present in the water column, also the with the methane consumption, and this is the population of some organisms that are the abundance of those organisms that are in this depth. Okay, we will talk about a little bit about some what happened with the depth zones. For example, we don't have any data about what is really happening in this area. We have just this recent paper, because as you know, this year this paper was published because trying to put the importance, what importance the polymetallic nucleus are involved in the production of oxygen. This was a really important discovery because recently we only know that the oxygen in the deepest zone belongs to the deepest currents, you know, but right now there's people who are really convinced that probably most of the big part of this oxygen become from the polymetallic nucleus. So maybe it will be important for us to Costa Ricans and most of the people who research in these topics try to make an inventory of this kind of oxygen production becoming from the polymetallic nucleus. Sorry. Okay. Because that was just one experiment and some in the middle of the Pacific, but as you know, there's many places in the deepest zone that are plenty of this kind of nucleus. That this one. So maybe it will be important to know that it's really how much oxygen is produced in the deepest zone by the polymetallic nucleus. Probably we have more of this oxygen coming from these environments. And the other question that I have for this talk is we have you know, the Cocos Island, and it's not really offshore, but it's offshore, but it's an island, you know. But this year we have this paper that is focusing the importance of the coralline algae beds. And as you know, in the Cocos Island there is a really important part of the island covered, surrounded by the algal beds, whereas you know the Rodolitos, and those authors are making an inventory and how important those environments are to the carbon sequestration, to carbon pump in the oceans. And probably we need to know more about that kind of environment and try to make an inventory of how much carbon are fixes in this kind of environment, because they just use information from the Brazil and some part of Mexico and Europe, but we don't have information about how much carbon is fixed in that kind of environment in our Cocolitos seabeds. Okay, thank you very much.
We have a lot of time for questions. So
thanks a lot for your talk. Please excuse my ignorance in this field, but is how much of the composition in the water column is controlled by the hydrostatic pressure in keeping some chemical species in solution rather than in the gas form so they don't escape. Because I see that a lot of the changes sort of happen at 100 meters depth. So is there something related with, like, I know hydrostatic pressure is the increase is constant. I mean, it increases regularly with depth, but to me it seems like because I ask this because we see it in volcanoes, in crater lakes, that when we have a lot of water in the crater lake, that keeps a lot of chemical species in solution and they don't come out. So how much of this happens in the water columns at higher depths?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. The hydrostatic pressure is more important for the gases, as you know, but probably methane is controlled mostly for the organisms, not only for the hydrostatic pressure. And maybe nitrogen could be influenced by the hydrostatic pressure, but the other species are dissolved, and they're really important to the hydrostatic pressure. It's more important for the organisms. They are controlled by the organism, the primary production or oxidizing methane, for example. But this is more for gases like methane and N2O, for example, but not the others.
Hi, Eddie. That was very, very interesting. It was very cool to see all of that production of nitrous oxide. And again, chemistry is very hard, so I might have missed it. So the nitrous oxide, is it produced like because of the reduced oxygen? The nitrous oxide, the N2O, is produced because of the reduced oxygen in the mid-water? Okay, so when that goes up, like the organisms that consume these, is there like an estimate of their abundance in these areas? Like the ones that, like, because you showed the graph where the nitrous oxide was going up, right? And then you say like, oh, but it's the organisms that tap into these nitrous oxide and assimilate it.
Yeah, there are also papers that related with the population, the kind of the diversity of the organism that consume that kind of products of the nitrogen cycle, but I don't show it here. But most of the people consider that yes, the organism that control the different kind of species of the cyclonitrogen, not only the solubility or a chemical process, is mostly regulated by the organism that control that kind of compounds in the water column.
Okay, I think this is our last question.
Great talk, by the way. I really enjoy that. There is well-standing unknown about the ocean that people call the methane paradox, right? So it's papers by Dave Carl and all that look at a disproportionate amount of methane coming out of the ocean relative to the sources of methane that we know are there. How much, is there a way to disentangle how much methane may come from this expansion and contraction of an oxygen minimum zone, like your data was showing, compared to the cleaving of methylphosphonates, right? That's supposed to be like the other big source of the methane that generates this methane paradox idea. And has anyone, or have you come across anything like that, or is that do you think that that's an interesting thing to pursue in terms of where the methane's coming from and how that's going to affect climate change, right? Because that's probably the most potent greenhouse gas, right, out of everything else that was shown in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. It's supposed that methane comes from the organic matter mineralization, because you know the water columns is plenty of organic matter, and then that falls down in the water column. And it's supposed that methane doesn't reach the atmosphere because there is a huge population of organisms that consumes that methane, and when you try to measure methane near the surface, is a few methane. It's just a minimal concentration near the surface, and even in the water column, in the shallow part of the water column, there is a few methane. So the people suppose that most of this methane is being oxidated, but that's kind of process coupled with the nitrogen cycle, and also with this kind of organisms, archaeas and bacteria.
Thank you, Eddie. So now we're going back to Bea for our next section for the morning session.
Well, I actually have to present, so I will give it to Fiorella, but I will just explain.
Hello everyone, my name is Gwendolyn Matamoros. I'm the
3 minutes presentations, so a little patience if anything is
pleased to
working
present
for a while,
our poster
because we have some videos from people that it's not here. So yeah, 3 minutes and Fio. Where's Fio? Okay. Fio will help me with the to moderate. Sorry. So yeah, the first one is from Wendy, that you met her the last days. She's not here today, but she's from the Museum of Zoology, and she sent us a video.
Hello everyone, my name is Gwendolyn Matamoros. I am the collection manager of the Museum of Zoology, and I am pleased to present our poster Focus in Deep Sea Collections. The deep sea is one of Earth's less explored ecosystem, as you know, rich in biodiversity and scientific potential. And our museum focused on documenting, cataloging, and sharing this collection to advance global research and conservation efforts. With over 1,000 specimens, including new discoveries, our collection covers the Pacific and Caribbean regions of Costa Rica and are preserved, cataloged, and accessible for research and education. Importantly, this collection has supported numerous research projects and contributed to over 40 publications. Our deep sea collection are diverse and represent several key taxonomic groups. Allow me to highlight a few. The first of all, echinoderms, these organisms offering insight into the health of marine ecosystem. Then the cnidarians, these species play a vital role as habitat formers, providing shelters and structure for other marine life. The crustaceans, these are integral to deep sea food webs. The deep sea fish offer a glimpse into the challenges of life in the abyss. And finally, the mollusks with role in nutrient cycling. Each specimen tells us a story of adaptation, survival, and biodiversity, contributing to our understanding of life in these extreme environments. That's why we want to show you that our work supports education in the way that developing teaching materials on marine biodiversity, the conservation, because we identify and protect the deep sea habitats, and in research, in the way that we expanding knowledge of deep sea species and ecosystems. The Museum of Zoology deep sea collections are not only a resource for scientific discovery, but also a tool for fostering education, conservation, and collaboration. So we invite researchers, educators, and institutions to explore and utilize this collection for advancing knowledge and protecting our planet marine heritage. Thank you for your attention.
Hi everyone, my name is Leonardo Chacon. I am a former student from the Escuela de Biología at the Universidad de Costa Rica, and I had the incredible opportunity to join to the scientific team in the second expedition of the Octopus Odyssey. And I am here today to invite you to have a closer look to the amazing diversity and distribution of the echinoderms collected from those samples. We collect about 74 samples out of 309 total samples, making it the more represented animal phylum in the whole expedition. From the collects that we made, we were able to identify about 49 morpho species from 45 taxa, and about 28 of the organisms that we find are new records for Costa Rica, and some of them are also new records for Central America and the tropical Eastern Pacific. We have 39 morpho species, 49, sorry, morpho species, and 10 species that require more scrutination because they are identified able family label. We have 39 specimens identified to genus level and 16 species to specimens, sorry, to species level. So with this picture, I want to tell you that echinoderms links the hard bottoms and the soft substratas with water columns, and they inhabit different kind of organisms like as epibionts, and like any photograph taken by the Sebastian, this photograph here has a hidden history, and if you are interested, I invite you to come and see our poster in the afternoon presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning, I'm Beatriz. I'm associated with different projects about deep sea science with Jorge Angola and all the Costa Rican team. So in this poster, what I want to present is the results from the offshore phase of an expedition we made in 2019 with support of National Geographic Pristine Seas and Undersea Hunter Group, where we explored different offshore areas around Caño Island and all the Osa Peninsula, covering different depths from 10 meters to almost 2,000 meters. And for this, we use different technologies. We use props or baited cameras at 10 meters depth. So we put a bait there, and we analyze all the diversity that came into this epipelagic zone. Then we come a little bit deeper with the deep sea submersible that many people here already explained how it works. And with this, we explored both the Mesophoric zone, close to 50 meters, and mostly we made a big effort to explore the zone between 200 to 400 meters, which I call the upper slope. And this was really interesting because it's basically all the fishing grounds for shrimp trawling. So it was really interesting. And then we come a little bit deeper with this. I don't know if you can play the video, Jan. Okay, well, we use a camera that goes with bait also, but it's autonomous. So it's called a drop cam, so you basically just drop it on the ocean and you program it to automatically come back to the surface. And with this, we explore different areas between 500 to trying to get to the 2,000 level. And since it has bait, mostly we found a lot of elasmobranchs, sharks and rays. And I can tell you more about that in my poster. Overall, we have 167 species or morphospecies, and we managed to sample 68 stations, and we analyzed almost 400 hours of video. The next slide, please. I have this. So I just want to show you a video focusing on the so this is a drop cam that goes to the bottom of the ocean and then goes to the surface. And this is how the shrimp trawling grounds look like. So for me, what's really exciting because shrimp trawling fishery was my first insight into deep sea biology in a boat, seeing all the dirt animals. So being able to be here in a submersible was like a whole experience for me. And this is really important because we managed to gather the first, like quantitative information on the ground. So just the next slide, quickly. Just to say that yeah, you will see like we made the distribution analysis from different families of fish. So this gave us a lot of information to support to have information about already recognized conservation gaps in the South Pacific. So feel free to chat with me later.
Is this on? Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Marco, I'm a postdoc at Oregon State University. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about like the community of drifting organisms in the water column known as plankton. Within this community of organisms, there's a myriad of interactions, feeding interactions depicted here in red. And the cumulative patterns of these interactions ultimately shape the energy and the material transfer through the food web. However, as you can see in this depiction, it is a highly complex system, right? Luckily for us, can we go, can we click? Can I click? Uh-oh. Yep, well, there you go. Luckily for us, like the flow, like the directionality of the energy flow through the system follows the same directionality of an increasing size, at least for these type of organisms. And that's why plankton is considered to be a size-structured community. And we can use these two, these relationship to draw, basically, and to calculate the slope of the linear regression between an organism's size and its abundance. And this metric in particular, the slope of this relationship, is directly linked to how much of the energy and the material, the matter that is produced here at the lower trophic levels by primary producers ultimately gets transmitted and fuels the biomass of higher trophic levels. However, we have to get size measurements for plankton, and that was very hard to do until recently, with the development of imaging systems that produced tons of data, and this allowed us to develop a computational workflow that taps into existing databases of plankton size and abundance to generate this size spectra database that has an unprecedented global coverage. And because of this coverage, we were able to then use this data to inform the development of biogeochemical global models that help us understand how climate change will affect trophic transfer through the systems. And as you can see here in this map, all of these blue areas predict or show that, like, under climate change, basically trophic transfer efficiency will decrease in high emissions. Currently, I'm working on developing other workflows that will allow us to get size data from systems that image larger plankton with relevance, with ecological and commercial relevance, such as fish, larval fish, and jellyfish. The reason why I came here is because I'm very excited as a Costa Rican to see all of this critical mass of people developing data on images, and I think that there is a potential to use all of these data that is being generated to develop ecological indicators. So happy to be here.
morning, everyone. I am Jose Mario Macis. I am a geology student of University of Costa Rica, and today I'm gonna talk about my poster entitled Preliminary Results of the Microfauna Analysis from Marine Sediments at El Dorado, Tengoset, and La Pulperia sites in the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. This is part of my undergraduate thesis that I've been working with my teachers, Viviana Gamboa and Marcelo Sandoval. The study area corresponds to 3 sites visited during Octopus Odyssey last year, and include El Dorado, Tengoset, Seamount, and La Pulperia. The poster highlights the main species at each site, such as Rheophax scorpiurus, foraminiferous species, such as Rheophax scorpiurus at Tengoset, and Hyperamina elongata and Paratrocomina challengeri at El Dorado Hill and La Pulperia Hill. The key findings include that the species found at 3 sites are mainly agglutinated, and also there is a reduction of calcareous organisms with increasing depth, and these organisms are entirely absent at El Dorado Hill. And this suggests that the carbonate compensation depth, or CCD, is possible close to the deepest sites. And if you want to see more photos and learn more about these results, I invite you to check out my poster, and I'll be happy to explain further and answer all your questions. Thank you for your attention.
Well, we will get a coffee break, and we will be here in half hour, and for the second round of lightning talks. It's 10:30 now, right? 10:50. Then. $10:45.
Hello, we are students from the University of Costa Rica. We come from the Museum of Zoology. We are here in the Offshore Symposium, and we have an exhibit of deep sea organisms. Here we have a new species of chimera that was just discovered here. We also have the tripod fish and the yeti crab.
We also have some octocorals. Some of these create reefs in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have sea sponges. This is a sponge. We also have some starfish that were collected in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have some sea cucumbers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, this is an interactive sandbox that represent different things in geological features and show us how the slope change when I change the direction of the sand. So we can see heights here and water over here. In the in the in the display, we can see the parts of with waters and the parts that represent mountains or islands.
Hi, today we have some of the rocks and minerals from the ocean. Those ones are from the Octopus Odyssey that some of the researchers participate last year. And here we have some of the microfossils. We have radiolarians and foraminifera. They are part of the pelagical rain. And here in this part, we have some of the fossils of the collection from the Geological School of UCR. As you can see, these ones are part of some seafood. They are like whale fossils, and those ones are some basalts. And here we have this slide that you can see in the microscope.
I mean, it's a so good idea. Like, I would never think of this. Yeah, no. Like, you think of things, yeah, not this. And the material. Yeah. I think that's really nice. I think that's not even. This one is really. Wow. Notice this here. No, from before.
Hello, we are students from the University of Costa Rica. We come from the Museum of Zoology. We are here in the Offshore Symposium, and we have an exhibit of deep sea organisms. Here we have a new species of chimera that was just discovered here. We also have the tripod fish and the yeti crab.
We also have some octocorals. Some of these create reefs in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have sea sponges. This is a sponge. We also have some starfish that were collected in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have some sea cucumbers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is an interactive sandbox that represent different things in geological features and show us how the slope change when I change the direction of the sand. So we can see heights here and water over here. In the display, we can see the parts with waters and the parts that represent mountains or islands.
Hi, today we have some of the rocks and minerals from the ocean. Those ones are from the Octopus Odyssey that some of the researchers participated last year. And here we have some of the microfossils. We have radiolarians and foraminifera. They are part of the pelagical rain. And here in this part, we have some of the fossils of the collection from the Geological School of UCR. As you can see, these ones are part of some seafood. They are like whale fossils, and those ones are some basalts. And here we have these slides that you can see in the microscope. Those are samples of seafood. They came from the Pampa Submarina in the seafloor, and they are related with Miocene sediments.
This is a sample from radiolarian calcareous unsiliceous ooze. That we can see here are some radiolarians that are from more or less Miocene, Middle Miocene to, Middle Miocene in general, and it's around 15 million years ago that all these organisms that you can see here were living. Today we don't have any more radiolarians at that age. So this species we used to calibrate ages in the deep ocean.
These are Miocene foraminifera from the Pampa Submarina from the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. This is unprocessed sediment full of foreigns.
No, no puedo. Beatriz, yo tengo una pregunta muy importante.
Uno, dos, uno, dos.
Podríamos grabar más sesión de Zoom, si quisiéramos también, ¿sabes? Si recordamos al teléfono, vamos a grabar el teléfono. Yo no pensaba que me iba a poner,
Hello, we are students from the University of Costa Rica. We come from the Museum of Zoology. We are here in the Offshore Symposium, and we have an exhibit of deep sea organisms. Here we have a new species of chimera that was just discovered here. We also have the tripod fish and the yeti crab.
We also have some octocorals. Some of these create reefs in the deep sea of Costa Rica, And we also have sea sponges. This is a sponge. We also have some starfish that were collected in the deep sea of Costa Rica. And we also have some sea cucumbers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We will continue with our next round of lightning talks. So I will hand the mic again to Phil. To Mari, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maricruz Valverde. I'm a student of geology here at the University of Costa Rica, and I'm currently doing my thesis of licenciatura. And today I want to share with you a little bit of the investigation that we've been working on. It's about foraminiferal associations as environmental indicators, a study of surface sediments from the Pacific margin of Costa Rica. Okay, we analyzed 15 different samples along the marine platform from the south of the Nicoya Peninsula to the southern part of the Osa Peninsula, the first 3 centimeters of the sediment cores. So what can we find at this poster? For example, we can see the ecological indicators of the Pacific margin of Costa Rica based on the abundance of the different bentonic and planktonic foraminifera, and also a general characterization of the environment. In this case, warm waters with high productivity levels and a low oxygen environment. And also, you will be able to see a little bit of the pictures that we took of foraminifera with pyrite alteration, and that reinforce the fact that this environment is low oxygen and with cold SIPS indicators. And thank you.
The next one is a video.
Hello everyone, my name
This
is
is from Laura Alvarado
Today,
from the
I
School
will
of Geology.
present my
Students.
research title, Analysis of the Spatial-Temporal Variability of
No, she's not a
Sediments.
student. She already graduated.
Hello everyone, my name is Laura Alvarado. Today I will present my research title, Analysis of the Spatial-Temporal Variability of Sediments in the Terroa Sierpe Delta System. This study is part of my final graduation project. The main goal of this project is to analyze the spatial-temporal variability of the physical properties and composition of continental and marine sediments in the Terroa Sierpe Delta System. We use microscopic analysis and laboratory tests to characterize these sediments. For this research, we collected samples from the ocean floor and from the Sierpe and Terroa rivers, in total 8 ocean floor cores and 7 river cores from the Sierpe and Terva rivers. Our hypothesis is that Terva-Sierpe rivers erode and transport materials from the upper part of the basin to the ocean sediments. As a result, we expect that the mineral composition between marine and continental sediments samples to be similar, but with variations in the percentage of minerals and their degree of alteration. To achieve our goal, we follow a rigorous methodology that includes microscopic analysis and laboratory tests. Now let's discuss the results. The physical properties of the sediments are very similar in both types, except for granulometry in marine sediments due to reworking. We found significant concordances in the mineral content between both types of sediments, with some exceptions such as rutile and blue chloride, which formed secondarily due to environmental conditions. We observed a marked difference in biogenic content, because in delta deposits we found continental organic matter like leaves, wood and pollen, while in marine sediments we found foraminifera, sponge spicules, and sea urchin spicules, among other organisms. In conclusion, the mineralogy of continental and marine sediments shows great similarities with some exceptions. Physical properties are largely similar except for granulometry, and significant differences in biogenic content reflect the constrained environments of the dike and marine deposits. Well, that will be all for now, and thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, we're sorry we couldn't fix the volume of the video.
The next one is also a video for Armando Bonilla of the School of Geology.
Hello everyone. Hello everyone, my name is Armando Bonilla, and in this video I will give you a brief summary of the poster presenting part of my final graduation project titled Microplastics in Marine and Estuarine Alluvial Sediments of the Central South Pacific, Costa Rica, Characterization and Spatial Distribution. So what exactly are microplastics? They are plastic particles that range in size from 5 millimeters down to 1 micrometer. For this project, I am conducting an analysis of these particles from a geological and methodological perspective, taking into account the sedimentary environment from which the sediment cores were obtained. Out of a total of 12 cores, I have processed and analyzed 5, which are highlighted in green on this map. The 5 cores correspond to a total of 40 samples. In all of these samples, I found microplastics, and I categorized them into 5 different types based on their shape: filaments, planar fibers, fascicular fibers, fragments, and films. Each sample I analyzed had 10 grams of sediment, and from each core I took 8 samples. Because of time limitations, I will not go into details of each individual sample, but instead I have included a chart that summarizes the concentration of microplastics by core. The detected particles are divided into 2 groups: large microplastics, which range from 5 mm to 1 mm, and small microplastics, which range from 1 mm to 1 micrometer. Looking at the chart, there are three key takeaways. First, we see that small microplastics are more abundant. Second, the concentration of microplastics varies a lot from core to core, and there is no clear pattern when we look at the sedimentary environments or the distance from the coast. And third, the total amount of microplastics is significant. So far, I have detected and classified 6,681 particles. To learn more about this work, including the methodology employed and additional details of the preliminary results obtained, I invite you to visit the poster in the afternoon. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Well, my name is Gabriel Rodriguez. I'm the project manager of Friends of Cocos Island Foundation, and I'm going to present my poster titled "Building Climate Resilience, Adaptation and Mitigation Strategies for the Cocos Marine Conservation Area." This is an effort between Marine Conservation Area, Cocos Marine Conservation Area, Friends of Cocos Island, Marviva, Blue Action Fund, Dawes Foundation, and Equilibrio Natural Consulting Team. Well, as you know, protected areas play a vital role in preserving biodiversity, ensuring ecosystems, and supporting ecological resilience. The Cocos Marine Conservation Area expands 30% of Costa Rican's economic zone, and including National Park, Cocos Island National Park, the Bicentennial Marine Management Area, that also form part of the Eastern Tropical Pacific Marine Corridor. The object of this plan is to develop a climate change adaptation and mitigation plan that increase the resilience and reduce the vulnerability of the ecosystems and services to climate change impacts. Also, this plan is currently in the final phase of development. Well, we based on the methodology of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Framework, and they study following these 5 steps. The first one is to identify critical management elements for conservation. The second one is to evaluate the bioclimatic characteristics of the area, analyze the climate risk and historical trends, inventory the greenhouse gas emissions, and finally, and the most important part, it's the planned actions to mitigate climate impacts in this area. Well, the most important findings, and according to this methodology, is to, well, we identify biodiversity, ecosystem services, cultural heritage, livelihoods, infrastructure, and management effectiveness as critical management elements of conservation. Also, we analyze and evaluate bioclimatic characteristics such as biodiversity and productivity, sea surface temperature, rainfall, and climate variability. Also, we analyze some climate risk in island areas and marine areas according to stronger rains, landslides, and droughts in the marine area and in the island area, and the marine area raising sea levels, ocean acidification, and marine heat waves. We also made a greenhouse gas inventory, and the total of emissions of 321 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And the most important part also, it's key actions according to adaptive monitoring, threat and risk management, resilient infrastructure, and carbon footprint reduction. This part, it's according to the rangers, the experience, the knowledge. Well, we conclude that we need to integrate monitoring and adaptive management, form partnerships from research and data sharing. That's the reason that we are talking about these things here. Use the Cocos Marine Conservation Area as a climate observatory, and train the staff in climate responsible response strategies. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody.
From the last presentation of this section, we have a video from Randy Chinchilla from Friends of Cocos Island.
Hello, everybody. My name is Randy Chinchilla Ramos. I'm a Geographic Information System Specialist from Friends of Cocos Island Foundation. Today, I am excited to share with you the profile of this project we have just launched, involving 3 academics units of the University of Costa Rica, the Cocos Marine Conservation Area, ACMSM, and FICO. The project, Photogrammetric and LiDAR Mapping of Cocos Island National Park, aims to generate accurate geospatial information about Cocos Island using advanced photogrammetric and LiDAR technologies. The efficient management of protected areas requires updated information about natural ecosystem and the human activities that take place in them. These technologies are capable of collecting and analyzing data on physical and social elements of the natural environment. This allows for better decision-making and data-driven conservation strategies. With accurate and up-to-date data on the structure and composition of the island's ecosystems, we can develop effective conservation strategies and design protection measures tailored to the island's unique characteristics. The application of this technology is expected to provide valuable data like detailed information on land use changes, forest canopy structure, topography, landside prone areas, and infrastructure, among other aspects. Finally, this project will lay the foundation for future research and programs. The collection of detailed 3D data will open the way for in-depth studies on the island's ecology, ecosystem dynamics, and long-term environmental monitoring. We invite you to learn more about this project in the poster session. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you to all the poster presenters. Now we will begin another session about collaboration, and I will hand the mic to Fabio Quesada, who will help me.
So hi, it's my pleasure to present our next 3 speakers, which are the last session of the morning. And at first is Leonard Pace. Leonard Pace is a science program senior manager at the Smith Ocean Institute, has overseen interdisciplinary science projects aboard research vessels since 2013, collaborating with over 100 organizations globally. He also leads the Ocean Coalition, promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion in marine science. He holds a bachelor's degree in marine and environmental science and a master's degree in fishery biology. So Leonard couldn't be physically here with us today, but he sent a video and he's also connecting virtually to answer some of your questions later.
Hello, my name is Leonard Pace, and I am the Science Program Senior Manager at Schmidt Ocean Institute.
On behalf of myself and all the staff at Schmidt Ocean Institute and the crew of Research Vessel Falkor 2, thank you very much for this opportunity to share a bit about the research that we have supported in Costa Rican waters. Schmidt Ocean Institute is a 501c3 private, non-profit operating foundation established in March of 2009 to advance oceanographic research, discovery, and knowledge, and to catalyze the sharing of information about the ocean. Eric and Wendy Schmidt established Schmidt Ocean Institute as a seagoing research facility operator to support oceanographic research and technology development, focusing on accelerating the pace in ocean sciences with operational, technological, and informational innovations. We have conducted research across 3 vessels since we began, with Research Vessel Falkor and Falkor 2 supporting research projects in Costa Rican waters. We have been providing Research Vessel Falkor 2 as a platform to conduct oceanographic research and technology development since 2023. The vessel offers berthing for 25 researchers who are provided with access to the ship's over 200 square meters of laboratory space, its suite of mapping sonars, acoustic profilers, its CTD rosette, the full ocean depth lander, and its high-performance computing system. For those in the audience who did not have the opportunity to sail aboard Falkor 2, I'm happy to take you on a virtual tour. Beginning in the ROV hangar and standing on one of the vessel's 2 moon pools, to the starboard side you see ROV Sebastian, and to the port side is the Dirty Wet Lab, where our CTD and its launch and recovery systems live. Here, most of the samples get collected and their processing begins. And as we move forward on the vessel, we come to the Hydro Lab, where researchers have access to multiple sinks, refrigerators, and a snorkel hood. And across from that is the Robotics Lab, a semi-dry space intended for work on technology that's headed into the water. Forward from there is the Mission Control Room. This is the main space where vehicle deployments are led and controlled. It is where the images from our science party leading ROV dives and the like come from. For those who got to participate in expedition dive streams, this is where the researchers are speaking from. It has comfortable space for over a dozen, and the feeds coming into this room can be accessed throughout the ship, so the science party can maintain awareness and contact with in-water activities. Across from there is the Wet Lab, with a refrigerator and freezer, as well as multiple hoods, Millicue water, and working sinks. Across from there is the Computer Electronics Lab, with plenty of seating and space for the research team to set up their computers and conduct work and monitor operations. You'll note the cabling intentionally exposed in the column and floor to allow everyone to see exactly how the information moves throughout the vessel. The main lab is configurable for the science party needs and offers multiple refrigerators, freezers, hoods, computer rack space, and access to seawater, DI, and Millicue water. It also has several types of power outlets to support the different systems brought on by the researchers. The Seawater Lab is specialized for working with seawater instrumentation. It contains all of Falkor 2's underway seawater sensors and provides multiple seawater taps for science party provided flow-through sensors. In addition to regular and chilled seawater, there is plastic-free seawater feed for working with microplastics. The ship's liquid nitrogen generator is also housed here. Above the lab deck, the ship has a conference room space for meetings, presentations, video conferencing, and ship-to-shore calls. There are also other communal spaces on the vessel that allow for the science party to get together and have gatherings and get work done. I will end the virtual tour in the ship's dining area that has seating for 30, and the chefs are able to accommodate many dietary preferences. We also had the opportunity to use remotely operated vehicle Sebastian, which is capable of working down to 4,500 meters to collect data, samples, and provide live video streaming in 4K to the ship and shore-based audiences via YouTube, and the support of the highly experienced crew and technicians who help enable the science and outreach while at sea. The vessel and its systems were, and continue to be, provided to the participating researchers at no cost to the invited research teams. Those teams bring their knowledge, capabilities, and equipment, and they agree to share the data and knowledge they collect freely and quickly. The projects selected for support aboard Falkor 2 are chosen through a rigorous review process. Our strategic framework guides us in the selection of projects over the course of 10 years and research throughout the world ocean. It speaks to our mission to combine advanced science with state-of-the-art technology to achieve lasting results in ocean research, to catalyze the sharing of information, and to communicate this knowledge to audiences around the world. The work we support is to foster a deeper understanding of our environment. Within the strategic framework are 7 topic areas that provide an understanding of how Schmidt Ocean Institute prioritizes various oceanographic disciplines. They are mapping the seafloor, frontiers of biodiversity, stability of ocean health, exploring the deep, power of nature, the human effect, and technologies for the future. Through their inherently exploratory nature, these topics provide the underpinning knowledge that will lead to additional decades of scientific discovery and allow the world to better interact, manage, and care for this ecosystem. Within each topic, SOI will prioritize projects that seek to conduct exemplary research into one or ideally multiple topic areas within the strategic framework. SOI dedicated the next 10 years of Falkor 2 operations to the Southern Hemisphere. Right now, the crew is in Punta Arenas, Chile, and is preparing for our first expedition to Antarctica. Afterwards, Falkor 2's journey will proceed along the areas of operation you see here. But, as you all know, Falkor 2 began its journey down the Central and South American West Coast in Costa Rica. But before Falkor 2, research vessel Falkor conducted research in Costa Rican waters. Our first expedition from Costa Rica set sail from Punta Arenas in 2018 and was led by Dr. Richard Camilli from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. That project took the research team to nearby seamounts to use multiple robotic systems in tandem to explore, interpret, and sample this complex environment. Their project conducted real-time 3D reconstructions at cold seeps 1,000 meters deep and improved multi-robot coordination and control. In the upper right, you can see the AUV and the team brought aboard being deployed, and in the lower 2 images, you see the rock mound, and next to it is the 3D reconstruction from it. This technology development project recently published an article based on the novel analysis method the investigators built for the images collected from the fisheye lenses. The DOI for that can be found on this slide. Just a month later, we set sail again from Punta Arenas, but this time the research was led by Dr. Eric Cordes from Temple University. He and his team set out to investigate seamount subduction, where methane seeps, thermal anomalies, and non-subducting seamounts interact. The team used a suite of sensors and instruments aboard Falkor to combine biological and oceanographic surveys, transplant experiments, and vertical water column characterizations to provide a full biogeochemical understanding of the area. Seen in the top images are some of the biological communities they saw and Falkor in the Cocos Islands National Park. This project resulted in 3 new species discoveries, 14 publications, with the most recent entitled A Remarkable New Deep Sea Nereidid with Gills, from March of this year, being made open access through support from Schmidt Ocean Institute. 2 of those 3 new mussel species are shown here, with one being in yellow and the other being brown. Between September and October of 2023, Schmidt Ocean Institute, in partnership with the National Geographic Society, supported an expedition to explore areas within the Isla de Coco National Marine Park, a protected area managed by Costa Rica, to examine links between coral communities on seamounts in the Galapagos and those in Costa Rica. This work was led by National Geographic explorer Ana Belén Suarez. The data she and her team collected on that expedition is intended to inform the management of the Eastern Tropical Pacific Marine Corridor, a network of interconnected marine reserves managed by the governments of Ecuador, Costa Rica, Panama, and Colombia. Most recently, Falkor 2 supported the Octopus Odyssey expeditions led by Dr. Jorge Cortes and Dr. Beth Orcutt to Dorado Outcrop last year. There, they and their science team that consisted of over 50% Costa Rican and other Latin American and Caribbean researchers set out to find and describe a unique octopus nursery habitat as seen in the top 2 images. These 2 expeditions spent 32 days of science studying the hydrogeology, microbiology, ecology, and geochemistry that they believe facilitate octopus nurseries while characterizing life-supporting services provided by these ecosystems on the seamounts. The team was also able to utilize the video annotation process facilitated by an open-source platform named Tater aboard Falkor 2 to enable precise identification of specific details within the deep sea footage seen in the lower right. This platform is laying the foundation for advanced AI-driven object recognition. Across our multi-year operations in the region, we have welcomed 32 Costa Rican investigators and conducted 70 days of scientific research and technology development. Those projects amassed a wealth of samples and data that are still being used to make discoveries about the waters off Costa Rica. The mapping effort across all of the expeditions resulted in over 25,000 square kilometers of multibeam mapping, which is roughly half the size of Costa Rica. All the data collected from Falcor and Falcor 2 systems is publicly available in repositories, and we hope to see that data used to improve our understanding of the ocean. Please visit the Data tab on our website if you're interested in accessing that data to learn how and where you can get access to it. The research that took place during these expeditions has been shared far more broadly than just the academic community. The outreach programs from those expeditions broke SOI records with their engagement and extent. The science parties took part in numerous ship-to-shore calls with schools, museums, and other shore-based groups that reached thousands of people. The research was further shared with millions through our social media networks. Although our expeditions in Costa Rica have completed, and we will not be back in those waters for quite some time, we look forward to the continued use of the imagery and data to lead to new discoveries for years to come.
Can you hear us? Oh. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, just
Right? Can we start the questions and then can you hear us? I think you're muted.
Sorry, that was on my end. How about now?
Wonderful. Thank you for your presentation. And now there's some questions. Somebody have questions for Leonard?
Hi, Leonard. This is Beth Orcutt, in case you can't see me. I really liked your slide at the towards the end. How do I sound now? Okay, can you hear me? Okay. The slide about the contribution to knowledge that came from Schmidt's work in Costa Rican waters. A suggestion that we could also add to that an emphasis of how many specimens stayed in Costa Rica, because I think that's a really unique aspect of the Octopus Odyssey expeditions. I'm not sure about the other ones, but I think in making that point of the role of your platform of enabling science and capacity sharing, that it's not just specimens going anywhere, but in country. So we're happy to help you come up with those numbers, if that would be helpful.
It would be very helpful, and I would very much appreciate having those numbers. Please, let's connect after this to make that happen. Oh, I said that I would be happy to make that happen. I'd like to connect with you, Beth, after this call and get those numbers so we can get the slide updated. Did that come through?
Yes. Thanks, Leonard. So my question is whether you have some numbers or data on how much have you spent on international waters versus exclusive economic zones. And if you see for the rest of the years that you already have planned, how much time and how much effort of the research is going to be done in the high season?
We don't necessarily cut the different areas that we're operating in by EEZ and non-EEZ for data collection purposes, but we can easily backtrack where the ship was and where it was collecting data to pull that information out. And I'm happy to work with you again offline to figure out the tracks that you're most interested in. And we can pull out the data of where the ship was operating and what samples were taken in or outside of EEZs. And for the next year, for 2025 SOI, we just announced all the areas that we're going to be operating in, all the different projects. And we could easily pull that out from the eastern side of South America where we'll be operating. Are you all hearing me okay?
Ooh, yeah. Hi, Leonard. Sergio saying yes. Thank you for the answer. This is Diva. Lovely to see you. Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to ask, you have behind you the map of all of the areas that Schmidt's going to be working on in the coming years. What are you feeling most excited about?
Oh, personal. I am really excited to be operating out of Uruguay. A couple of cruises that we selected were out of Uruguay, and there is a real dearth of information there. And I'm really, really excited that we were able to select those projects to be able to provide Falcor 2 to this region that just doesn't have data. That really, really got me excited when we were kind of going through that selection process.
Yeah.
Hi, Leonard. For the next 10 years and the expeditions that will be done near Antarctica or in the Southern Ocean, is there a plan to open up spaces, like if Costa Rican scientists want to join these expeditions, will that be possible?
Absolutely. There are multiple different ways that Costa Rican scientists can get involved with the work in the Antarctic. One, being collaborators on the projects that are being submitted to us. Two, you could lead projects. We are willing to support Costa Rican lead PIs to do work in Antarctica if the science questions are the ones that are most pertinent to the area, and the collaborative teams and technology being brought forward for the science are strong. And then there's also the Birth of Opportunity program, where individuals can be selected through SOI selection process to join fully planned expeditions. So there are lots of different ways that Costa Rican scientists can continue in Antarctic or other areas that they might be of interest to them.
Thank you, Leonard. Oh, one more question here. Who has one? No, I don't think. No, thank you, Leonard. Thank you for being connected here and answering some of our questions.
Is that it? I'm happy to answer more if there's time, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, I said thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I'm happy to answer any other questions now, or people can reach me at lpace@schmidtocean.org if they have questions after the call, after the meeting.
Thank you. Thanks, bye. Next, our next speaker is Mayla Guion. Mayla is Brazilian and holds a PhD in oceanography from the University of Sao Paulo. She is currently a collaborator of the Ocean Voices program, a member of the Deep Sea Stewardship Initiative, a steering committee, and one of the founders of the Women's League for the Ocean in Brazil. Mayla is also the creator of the initiative My Blue Future, propelling women early career ocean professionals. Her main interests include capacity development, gender in oceans career, the science to policy interface, and good practice for ocean governance, focused on the deep sea mining regime at International Seabed Authority. So, happy to welcome her.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone.
Hello, my name is Leonard Pace, and I am the science.
Okay, so while the slides are being uploaded or the presentation is being uploaded, just wanted to say hi to everyone and thank you for being here today and watching this presentation. So as I started, I can say that right now what I'm going to present is a little bit different from what you've been seeing in the last couple of days. So there is no ecology, geology, hydrogeology or anything like that. Unfortunately, there is not even like very nice pictures of deep sea organisms. So yeah. But please bear with me. I have great slides. Yeah, so basically today I'll be speaking about another angle of another way of looking into all of the efforts that are part of deep sea research here in Costa Rica, and hopefully this presentation will kind of resonate to each and all of you in your respective areas or in your science. So we will be looking into equitable collaborations in deep sea ocean research, using as a study case the OCTO-MES case study, but more specifically the OCTO Odyssey Leg 1. Yeah. So first of all, before I starting speaking a little bit about the work that we are doing, I really want to thank all the participants from the OCTO's Odyssey and everyone who voluntarily engaged to provide inputs, to have a conversation with me during the ship time. As you can see, this is extremely relevant to what we are doing, to what we are producing. So I'm really, really thankful to you all for your time and engagement. Thank you. Okay, so let's say that the interpretation of this image might not be a surprise or a novelty to any of you, but here the idea is basically just to show a representation of the expansion of human activities far in the ocean, but also deeper and deeper in the ocean as a result, of course, of efforts under blue economy. So here let's pay attention more to the deep water, seabed surface and seabed. And we can see there is like a good concentration or a numerous of activities taking places in these spaces. And these go from, let's say, perhaps less harmless or potential less harmless activities such as marine research to potentially high-risk activities such as deep-sea mining or deep-sea fisheries. But there is a story behind the advancement of human activities towards the deep ocean. And part of that started back in 1872 with the voyage of the HMS Challenger, which basically did research worldwide. And as you can see here in this picture, the team or the crew of the HMS Challenger wasn't very diverse. And that's something that has been propagating through all the years. Of course, we have changes, thank goodness, nowadays as things are getting better. But the phase, or perhaps the first phases of this deep sea research, are these, and these have stayed for long enough. And of course, these efforts come majority from global north or developed countries who held and then still hold the majority of resources, including human, financial, and technological capacity. And as a result of these efforts, we have what we call the parachute or colonial science, in which scientists from who are the holders of such resources basically land or visit places and collect all the information that they want, all the data, process that, and come up with publications without any sort of involvement from the local communities or the places where the field studies are taking place. And of course, because of this practice, you have the lack of inclusion of local communities, and we have the maintenance of such dependency from developing countries, developing nations, perhaps with less resources, towards developed countries with ships, laboratories, infrastructure, technology, and so on. And this needs to change. Well, so throughout time, research has recognized the need to think about it and to reflect about it, and you can find more frequent now in the literature some reflections about that and what we can actually do to come up with solutions to stop parachute science and to come up with good practices for science in general and not only deep ocean science. And here is important that you take a look at this slide because we've been using the framework from DeVos et al. And collaborators as a way or as the lenses through which evaluate how the Octo Odyssey has performed in terms of good equitable collaborations practices. So here is just for you to understand where we are coming from. These 5 themes were resulted from a literature review taken by DeVos and colleagues, and some of you are still in the room today who participated in this study. And as a result of such literature, you have these 5 main themes. And these were assessed against main stakeholders involved with deep sea or with research in general, including research community, institutions, funders, and publishers. So try to bear with me these 5 themes. In the context of the Octo Odyssey, what we did is that we took the 5 themes and assessed them with information that we had regarding the research community involved in the expedition, the institutions, and the funders. In this case, we didn't consider the publishers because we didn't think it applied. And the information that we provide were through these 3 different approaches. Participant perceptions, and that's where I'm so thankful to so many of you who had a chat with me in the form of semi-structured interviews, which were transcribed and analyzed, and as well as executed action. So basically what happened before, during, and after this first cruise that was also included as part of the analysis. And finally, what we think throughout that through the participants' perceptions, co-authors' experiences, but also the literature, what could be improved. So, what was good? Here is important to say that that's not the only things that were good. Actually, we have a massive table full of information, results, solutions, and everything that, of course, we couldn't bring to you today, but we invite you and we'll keep you in the loop about a publication that will result from this work. But among the main things that we were able to locate as part of the Octo Odyssey was the presence of reflexivity, especially by the research community or leading parts of this project, and how much the role and impact of leadership was also recognized by many participants that actually felt respected, involved, and as having something to contribute to the expedition. The embracing of diversity and local contexts, such as nationalities, gender, language, and disciplines, and many participants also reflected on the collaborative approach that took place before-ish, during and after the cruise. So here this before-ish is that because at the very inception and first steps of planning from the Octopus Odyssey, it wasn't collaborative. So with time and with a window of opportunity for reflexivity during the COVID time, things were changed, and that became much more collaborative, as we could see throughout all of these days. In terms of institution, it has been recognized by the different participants that the SOI together with the Falcor 2 provide a super important opportunity that will lessen the dependency from developing nations, for example, from the infrastructure or renting of ships in developed nations. And in terms of the funders, in this case of the Octopus Odyssey, participants had fundings for participation, which included training, transport, personnel, and equipment covered. And that's really important in ensuring that participants, especially those from developing countries, have actually the condition to join. Ooh, my voice. But of course, this is not a perfect it's not a perfect situation. There are a few points to be improved, and here we pointed again just a few. And here in terms of with the research communities, as I just explained, the collaboration wasn't perfect from the beginning. So it is really important that we have locals included in the planning and conceptualization of the proposals, and also that if you're visiting a country, you demonstrate some cultural literacy to the socioeconomic conditions, so you can actually work towards what makes sense for these areas. In terms of institutions, we argue that it's super important that there is a mechanism to kind of trace back the records of researchers involved in the proposal. So do they have any records of harassment or bad conduct or even sexual harassment? So this should be a specific point to be observed by the different institutions. That's what we are arguing. Also, institutions should make mandatory the inclusion of local people in the proposals, and that such, if it's not possible to include them, why not? Finally, in terms of funders, something similar. A prerequisite that the proposal is co-development with locals, and also that there is a mandate for bringing back the results to the community and informing them and making sure that they are aware of discoveries. Yeah, so as I said, these are just a tiny examples of our reflections, literature review, but and also perceptions from participants. And here we kind of came up with a tiny recipe, perhaps, for what could lead to equitable collaborations, being one, really each one of us independently of career level, age, or I'm finishing, to have this reflexivity process. So basically looking into what, why, and how you are doing things, and who are actually the beneficiaries of your research, of your actions, and etc. We saw as very important aspects inclusivity, transparency, openness, safety, and respect. This is fundamental to make sure that people are on board, safe, and feeling valued in different processes. But we still have a gap, and that's something that we want to bring with our reflection, which is basically how do we bring metrics for success? Even here with the discussions we just put, metrics here are basically qualitative information that we brought from the interviews with participants and a little bit from the literature, but how to make sure that funders and institutions are also accepting these as results and as indicators of success. Yeah, so just finishing this, there is a paper in progress with this research. Here is just, partial results. That the cruise was for sure, the people, the participants were for sure a very good opportunity and provided with a very valuable exercise of what a good cruise can look like and how we can improve towards more collaborative partnerships. Again, engagement from the very beginning, from conceptualization, is extremely important to ensure that we can have a good development, and everyone has a role in it. That's part of the reflection I try to bring. You as a researcher, or you as an institution, or you as a funder, there is something you can do towards improving such collaborations and diminishing these imbalances. And hopefully this can actually inspire each one of you within your context to think about it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, so I just want to take this chance to thank again all the participants of the Octos Odyssey, but also the COBRA program, who has supported my participation in the cruise and in development of the products that are ongoing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mala, for that wonderful presentation. We have time for some questions.
Thank you, Myla. Great presentation. It's a little bit of reflection and your perspective. So having a person dedicated in an expedition or a campaign to gather this information, to be somehow of a mediator. Sometimes like the chief scientists are really busy and they're thinking about like the science, and even though they might be able to help the interpersonal relations, and if there is any discrepancy or something, I believe, and from the experience that we had in the expedition, that having one person, in this case that it was you, I think it was a great thing. So my question to you is, do you think this is something that should be mandatory on every expedition, to have a role of a person that does this type of approaches with persons? And do you think this should be from the science party or from the crew of the vessel?
I have a bit of mixed feelings right now about this answer, because I believe that if we have enough changes or support coming from the institutions, but also the funders, that should relieve the burden in expeditions. So I'm not 100% sure that would be enough to just say, no, we don't need anyone playing this mediator role, because very critical things can happen. But I guess if we have the support from the majority of stakeholders, or all the stakeholders that apply here with mechanisms, internal policies and processes and monitoring, it might be perhaps not necessary to have someone. But this is just one step. This was just like one trial, so more to come, more to see.
Okay. Yeah. This maybe speaks to Sergio's question, but in a slightly different way. Myla, I wonder if an initial recommendation for the institutions, like the operators, is to require the science parties to have a collaboration plan. That's not necessarily something we did, and in hindsight, I think we should have. To do things like talk through, how are you going to work together?
Yeah.
How do you resolve conflict? What is your approach?
Yeah.
What are expectations about things like publications, et cetera? And so there's templates out there to create collaboration plans, and that might be something that the institutions could begin requiring. Like, you've had these conversations, you have a plan.
Absolutely.
To support the science. And so maybe it gets to the team could decide we're going to have a person, or we have an off-ship mechanism or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's something that I thought of as an additional maybe recommendation that we could put in there.
That's great. Thank you so much, Beth.
Yeah, mine is just a comment. Probably I didn't see it, but in your first slide, when talking about the blue economy and all the economy behind the oceans, I thought there is something missing there, and is tourism, because in many places that represents a large part of what they get from the ocean, and is good for conservation and other things. But I don't know, if it's not there, it would be good to add it to the image.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for the talk. I think institutions can't tell anybody else how people have behaved. So I think the collaboration plan or more honest discussions ahead of time. So I guess I'm also cautioning you, like, I don't think you can put that in the manuscript, right? Because that's a privacy issue that stays within institutions. And I feel like how it's been in deep sea research, it's sort of, you know, right? There's like a blacklist, which is a terrible way to approach all of this. So I'm just wondering, in Asha's paper and some of those others, how they approached it, thinking about building that team, but a collaboration plan, I think, is a great way, because maybe some people that aren't into that will voluntarily like walk away at that point in time without violating any confidentiality, and then instead it's like this conversation and action together. And I've never done this, just to be clear.
Okay, no, thank you so much. And I'm sure that Asha Devos doesn't bring any reflections on that, but that's definitely something for us to incorporate in as a possible recommendation in our paper and work, and thank you for that.
Just one quick more question.
This is very nice. The third world scientist, which is politically incorrect now to say that. This is great. This is great. After 40 more years working from Costa Rica, there's been a change, and this expedition is the great example of how things should be done, and it can improve as you show. And I had experience of just last year or 2 years ago, people from the UK offering that they could come if we pay for them to teach us how to take data. That's the type of insults we have been going through all this year. So this is, for me, this is it. And for many decades, I've been insisting that it's not only being invited, but be part of the proposals.
Absolutely.
And so this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Don Jorge. Thank you.
Okay, and at last, but certainly not least, we have our wonderful organizer, Beatriz Naranjo. Beatriz is a biologist with a bachelor's degree and a licenciatura from the University of Costa Rica and a postgraduate certificate in science communication and public engagement from the University of Edinburgh. As an independent researcher and Ocean Voices Program Fellow, she contributes to projects at the University of Costa Rica focusing on deep sea topics. So welcome aboard, Beatriz.
Thank you. So I wanted to leave this presentation for the last, as a last presentation, because I think after yesterday's panel was really clear why we need to engage more voices into this conversation. So I will not enter in the details of why that is important, because I think it's really clear after all our talks. And I wasn't brave enough to put my name here because I think this is a collaborative effort of all the Costa Rican team, which I really appreciate. I wear this t-shirt with a lot of pride. And basically what I want to talk about is a little bit the history of how this initiative began in the last year. And this is Costa Rica Desconocida, or Unknown Costa Rica. Is an initiative leadership by the University of Costa Rica, Universidad Nacional, and of course local artists that are really important in this initiative. And we have had a lot of support from different institutions. Just to mention a few, the Coastal Ocean Biosphere Research Accelerator, the Blue Nature Alliance, Fundación Amigos de la Isla del Coco, Charles Darwin Foundation, Pelagos NGO, Marviva, Schmidt Ocean Institute, and Undersea Hunter Group has put out all the footage so we can use it to engage more voices. And you are all part of this, so thank you as well. Okay, so this is a picture from our first cruise during the Octopus Odyssey, which I think is basically the kickoff of this initiative. And during that expedition, Alex Single made a video where Don Jorge at the end finished saying this, like, this is Costa Rica, this is the Costa Rica we don't know. And I know that we all cry, those who say they didn't, they're lying. It was a really emotive moment in the expedition. And I think this was the beginning of everything, but we were thinking about it. But this, after Octopus Odyssey, was it was the motivation we were waiting to start with this. Oops. So basically what we are trying to do is all that amazing footage we collected from the deep sea and bring it to more people. Oops. So we started during the expeditions with the Ship to Shores, where we show people online live presentations. We show them the ship, all the research we were doing, and to put some numbers, during the first expedition, just in Costa Rica, we were doing other Ship to Shores to other areas, but just in Costa Rica we were able to do 3 Ship to Shores where we engage with all the scientific high schools in the country. That means all the provinces. And we also connected with 3 public academic high schools from rural areas. And that means that close to 168 students were able to engage with us during the first cruise. Then for the second cruise, we started using the Costa Rica Desconocida name because after the first expedition, we had some meetings from the group. And we were able to connect also from Ship to Shores. We made a simultaneous Ship to Shore engaging with rural communities in the coast, but also in the Central Valley. And the expedition was shorter, so we were able just to do this during our cruise, and we engaged with close to 100 participants. And there were some forums before the Ship to Shore where we were talking about deep sea mining, thanks to this documentary and a partnership with different institutions that you see down here. And well, the expedition ended, and there were a few months where we were trying to get back to our normal lives. Some of us became famous, like Fio with the octopus, many others in the national TV, and we made some podcasts. Even this was a podcast in Spain. We went to the radio, and I still have to do this homework of how many we have, but there were plenty of them in the national news. And regarding imagery and art exhibits, we have managed to do 7 with the one that we have here. And I will just show you some examples of a few of them. This was an imagery exhibit we did at the side event at the Prionoc during Immersing Change. And as you see, it was like the most colorful side event we had back in June. And then this is in July. We managed to print large format pictures with some infographics. So this is one of the examples. This was made possible by the Red de Áreas Protegidas. It's a network of protected areas that belong to the university. And just to put a scale here, you have Oda and Jorge, so they're really big. They were in the campus. They are going to be moved to a botanical garden because we have some issues with a bridge and large story, but they will be available there for all the next year. And of course, Don Jorge did some presentations, and Carlos did some live painting there as well. And of course, thanks to Carlos, we have managed to paint some murals I paint a few, like some branches. But this is San Carlos, this is La Pulperia, which is also another important thing that we, since most of the places we went during the expedition didn't have a name, as Beth mentioned, we managed to put official names on this, and we tried to choose local names like Pulperia, which are these small stores we have in every corner here in Costa Rica. This is another example. This was at Universidad Nacional. Here is Sergio and Carlos. And this is also another illustrator who's working in some infographics right now, this person here. And of course, many young people engage in these paintings of murals. We also have done some immersive experience, something similar as Michael was saying with the video and music. And this is thanks to Pelagos NGO and a friend who's a DJ. So there will be one on Friday. With that, we 3 immersive experiences. And this has been great because, you know, if you do just activities related to the ocean, you will get people already engaged with ocean conservation. But in this, is like people go there because of the music. And then they see like all this footage. So we are gathering a lot of artists and people interested with different backgrounds. We are like developing these all new collaborations. So it's really exciting. We have also participated in at least 6 forums. These were like cine forums with the same documentary that I mentioned earlier, the Deep Rising documentary. And we also did some, I say like forum, in Spanish we say conversatorio, not sure how the translation is. But this is an example where Oda and I were in September, I think, in the North Pacific, engaging with the community. So we were like panelists, but we also have fishermen and dive tour operators from the area because they know really well the Mesophoric zone. So we started like in the Mesophoric zone and then talk about all the deep sea areas. And it was a really interesting conversation, really different from where we are used to it. Of course, we are in social media. This is our Instagram, but we also have a YouTube channel, and we are trying to, you know, work in different videos. So basically, all that you are seeing is there from June to this day. So I think it's been a busy year. And for example, for the art exhibit, we have booked 3 different exhibits for the first 3 months. So we are just getting people saying that I want to bring this imagery collection to my institution. So we have a busy agenda, hopefully next year as well. And for the future, and where I am focusing personally right now, is in web resources. So how to bring all this footage and information that we have from the deep sea of Costa Rica to different stories that are you know, like plain language and where we can get more people. So I want to make like some interactive maps, include visual resources, include the species atlas, timeline with all the history of the deep sea research, and a curated collection of published literatures. So there's a lot of work behind this to actually get to this. So we are working on that right now, and I'm really happy because right now with a regional project that we have, and also as part of my fellowship in the Ocean Voices program, I will be able to have time to develop this. So because I'm also a full web developer, a full stack web developer, so I'm really interested in this kind of topics. And just to show you a quick example, I'm working in putting some little stories about the, you know, like the most important or more iconic places we have in the deep sea. So I'm working on that. There's story maps, they are called. And with that I finish, I really want to thank all of you. I think we managed to do something like, I remember when I was in my biology classes, my professor from invertebrate zoology was telling us that here in Costa Rica we didn't have like giant pycnogonids or giant sponges. And that was just like 15 years ago when I was studying biology. And now we know that that was not true. And we just really want to engage with all these people that still don't know the deep sea, and maybe we can bring them to protect all these amazing places. So thank you really much. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to take some questions.
Questions?
Yeah, I've been totally blown away by what you guys have pulled off in terms of this campaign. It's just like, it is so impressive. I've never seen anything like it. So congratulations to all of you. It's been awesome to watch. I'm curious how fundraising for it has been going within country versus, NGOs outside of country, and, where there are gaps or needs that perhaps this community can also help with.
Thank you, Julie. That's a question for Don Jorge. He's in charge of the money. But I think with all the support we have had for the research, for example, for COBRA, where I was working in the video analysis, and the Blue Nature Alliance also in the video, like all is connected. So we were lucky enough to have this expedition, and that funding was key to actually kick off all of this. Right now we are starting a project in partnership with other countries in the region, like with Panama, Colombia, and thank you, Ecuador. And we will be able also to have regional products. There will be a lot of effort in communication for the region about the deep sea. So it's going, a lot of collaborations, a lot of voluntary work as well. But of course we have some needs still. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks, Rhea. I like the idea of this exhibition in schools and public places, but as a suggestion, I think we should have this sort of exhibition in places like Asamblea Legislativa, like in Congress, maybe at the presidential house, so it's something that it looks decorative, and they will walk into it, and then they will see that that's Costa Rica, that they haven't even think about it. So places where we can have a political impact too.
Yeah, totally agree. I think this year has been, like a lot of lessons learned. Some time to, establish the team and the roles. So everybody is really busy, and this is like on top of all thank you, the jobs everybody has. But yeah, I completely agree. We should think about that. And here I presented like only the where we have been doing with the Majory, but of course we also have like the research by itself is another key part of the initiative, and also the political incidents. I don't know how to translate that well, but we also are working in those fields. Yeah.
Answering to Julie regarding the funding, it's been a bit hard, but as Beatriz said, most of it has been voluntary work, which I really appreciate, of so many people doing things, putting things together, helping setting up these exhibits, connecting to different parts of the country, and that's been great. And of course, if there would be a little bit more funds, it would be good. And then she mentioned this regional project, which I always consider myself a lucky guy. I was invited to be part of that, and so Costa Rica is getting some funds that comes from the Best of Earth Fund, and as part of those funds, I've asked that a part goes into research, the analysis, and a big chunk goes into this campaign.
Any more questions?
Very cool, Beatriz. I'm speechless with all this work, but I had a question about this really impressive effort of trying to develop catalogs of these images across like all of these platforms that you guys have been using. Are you thinking of using existing web-based platforms that already have like established code and formats for the images, or are you trying to develop like in-house platforms?
No, what we are doing is that we are using an image database, which is global, but is managed by MBARI. It's called FathomNet. So our goal right now is to annotate all the footage that we have, make the identifications, place them in that database, and then call them to our website. So that's the workflow. So first, we need the IDs. And we have, I would say like 700 hours of video in total, like from different expeditions, might be more. So we are working on that. Yeah, it's a lot of work still to be done.
Any more questions? Oh.
Thanks, Bea. Thanks for your leadership. It's also, as Marcos, as I'm speechless, it's amazing to see how far this initiative has come. And yeah, thank you for compiling everything. And my question is, what would you like for the campaign to move forward on for the next year? Let's say, what will be your ideal activities or scenarios?
Well, I really want to have this webpage because it's a project I've been thinking about for a couple of years. So as a personal goal, that's something for me, at least to have the base to build on top of that in the next years. But also what I really like is to, the campaign go wherever it has to go. Like people coming, asking for example, this illustrator, she's a biologist, the girl I show you in the picture. She's a biologist, but is also an illustrator, so they come to us, they ask for footage to be inspired. So that's the thing I would like to see, like people coming to us, and that we have a stronger organization between ourselves to be actually able to help all these people that want to engage with us, which I think is one of the things we are missing right now. Yeah.
Well, I think that will be it. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow in Avisal supporting the project. And Beatriz, I don't know.
Yeah, well, when I did the program, I didn't realize I will have to speak a lot today, so I'm sorry for that. Right now we are going to the lunch, to have lunch, and then we will come back at 11:15, and we will split the group, and I will explain later what we are going to do. So enjoy your lunch. Thank you.